All right, welcome back to the Kaspa Silver YouTube channel. In today's interview, we have Luke, which is a community member, and he's mainly a part of the ambassador program, and he's kind of been the leader of that, making sure that it's organized and running as efficient as possible. And so we're going to just talk about Kaspa, have a little conversation here, and kind of speculate a lot of the future and all that kind of fun stuff. So Luke, go ahead and introduce yourself and kind of just start what you do right now, and also like how did you find Kaspa and how you got into it. So just kind of give us your story.
Awesome. Thanks, Victor. It's pretty sort of surreal to be hearing you do that intro because, I've heard the Casper Silver YouTube channel many times in the last couple of years and definitely enjoy your content. So thanks for having us on and having a chat. Yeah, so I guess you did a pretty good coverage of it, really. I'm a really passionate Casper community fan. I've been involved with the community now for a couple of years, and also have kind of assumed a role of, leading the ambassador program in the last couple of months. So with that comes onboarding of new ambassadors, finding new ambassadors, sort of nurturing those connections around the world with different regions of where they exist, and kind of hoping to foster a really natural community growth in many different regions. So I suppose, yeah, that's kind of what I focus on. But at the end of the day, just another community member that's really passionate, just like you are, and a lot of the guys out there. So yeah, that's what I'm doing at the moment. I don't know if you want me to go straight into the background story of how I found Casper, though. But yeah,
Go for it,
it's up
man.
to you.
That's why you're on here. They hear me enough on this
um,
channel. I want to hear other people's side.
yeah, no, it's perfect. So I feel like I've told this story a fair few times now, and it kind of never gets old. But yeah, I was so my background is I'm a sort of tech guy. I love building things. I love playing with tech. I love playing games as well on computers. Probably a lot of our community members do. And so over the years when I was younger, I used to play a lot of online games, and there was always kind of the concept of in-game currency, right? And so from the youngest age, when I used to play like RuneScape or WoW or whatever game, right? There was always that sort of fun experience of, stacking your gold and, putting it in your little bank and all that sort of stuff. And so, as I kind of got a bit older, out of those sort of games, my earliest memory was actually, I think it was like 2011 or something. I actually did stumble across Bitcoin. Right. And so at the time, being someone that kind of was really into tech. I'd often spend evenings really late into the night looking up just random things on forums because, back in that time, it was all forums, right? Digging through different groups and finding information. I kind of read about Bitcoin and it did pique my curiosity, right? And so at the time, I believe, I can't recall if it was still appropriate to CPU mine, but I did run a CPU miner on my computer, right? Because I had like a little gaming computer that I built myself. And so I remember, looking back on it now, it's funny, but I remember running it for a couple of days and I was like, this is pretty cool. But like most teenagers are, I got, distracted with more games, more life that was going on outside the computer and pretty much everything else, and was like, oh, this is using up my computer power. I'd much rather go do something else. So made the very unfortunate decision to just kind of cast that aside completely. I didn't carry on. Unfortunately, I don't have some celebratory story to tell you about how I found Bitcoin, mined it, and became a multi-billionaire. But what it did give me was that interest, right? Just a little bit of an exposure. And so a few years went past, a fair few, different sort of cryptos came and went. And then Ethereum kind of came on the plate for me, right? So I was looking at that. It was awesome because I had a graphics card and I could mine it again, right? And unlike Bitcoin, when I'd mined it with my CPU, I could quite easily scale up the mining of it with GPUs. You just get another GPU. So at the time, I played around with it and ended up going quite heavily into it during the last bull run. And so what started as one GPU, two GPUs, ended up a little bit of an obsession to the point where I think I had about over 100 GPUs at one point. Predominantly 3070s, a couple of 3080s, but they were just too hot. They were hard to kind of handle. But 3070s and 3060 Ti's that weren't limited by the stupid NVIDIA crypto mining restrictions, right? And so, I went through that. It was cool, right? It taught me a lot of different things. It taught me, how to do things that I'd never really focused on about before. So using large amounts of electricity. A lot of people underestimate mining, right? They think they just plug it into their wall socket, turn it on, and you put 50 there, and you're all good. No, you'll burn your house down. So, ask me, because I nearly did that. But you learn your lessons, right? And so it kind of taught me a lot of cool things, and it really scratched that itch of tech that I could physically do something with. I could build these rigs, and then I could mine with them. Now, I'll admit, right? I was an enjoyer from the sideline of Ethereum, right? I was making good profits, made some good money, enjoyed it, but I wasn't really subscribing to crypto as a means to change the world. Maybe like I do now, right? But what ended up happening was towards the end of that last. Not the bull run, but towards the end of actual what I think of Ethereum, when it went proof of stake, it sort of started giving me a little bit of a reflection on what am I doing here? Why am I doing? What is the purpose of this? And what is the purpose of, what this sort of project is? And so it started triggering a lot of questions to me about crypto and what is the true value of it here. And so, funnily enough, Ethereum had definitely toyed with the idea for a long time. There'd been a lot of talk in the community about them going proof of stake, but until the writing was on the wall, it had just been something that I just kind of gone, yeah, whatever. And so the important reason why I'm giving this background, I suppose, is that it leading up to that event of proof of stake, Ethereum going proof of stake, it triggered me to start looking at other projects, right? And so I'd always speculatively mined different things, tried it out, mined different projects like Raven and all those other sort of Flux and a whole bunch of different things that were popular at the time. They all had their really interesting qualities. Until I kind of stumbled across Kaspa, right? And that was the kind of it was kind of like an inflection point, right? So, funnily enough, I found Kaspa probably from YouTube, right? And that's why I really am passionate about YouTube creators and content creation in general that come from people like yourself, because if it wasn't for YouTubers who started speaking about it, then I may or may not have actually found Kaspa when I did. So the story is, the writing was on the wall. I started playing with different projects, as I said, found Kaspa. But there was really something that was quite interesting to me was, I mined Ethereum, and I'm recollection now, it's probably a bit blurry, but it was roughly 130 watts per graphics card, right? Somewhere around there. That's full bore, the best, most optimized overclocks that you could do. But when I ran Kaspa, because it's core heavy and not memory heavy, it was literally half the energy usage, right? It was like, 50, 60 watts. Like, I think I recall getting it down to 55 watts or something per graphics card. So, that already kind of raised my eyebrows, because, a lot of other projects out there had intentionally made their crypto quite RAM heavy, because maybe they'd been of the understanding that they felt that would stop or help with ASIC resistance, which in my opinion is quite futile. But Kaspa embraced it, And so it really triggered me to go start looking at it, right? And so I started playing around with it a bit more. I started looking for overclocks. That's a big thing. Go looking around on the forums, on the YouTube channels, on wherever, right? And I actually stumbled across the actual Casper Discord itself. And that's, where I dived in there, and I started seeing, in comparison, a lot of the other communities that I'd kind of cruised through. Admittedly, nothing wrong with the other communities, just maybe I didn't give them the look. But when I arrived in the Casper Discord, the level of conversation, like the caliber of discussion about intricate technical details, it kind of really captured me. And so I looked at it and was like, wow, like what's going on here, right? So I started digging into it more, and I feel like there was a little bit of a light bulb moment for me personally when it came time, because at the time I was using just the CLI wallet. And so I'm not sure if you've used it or not, but you're typing in commands, and it can be a little bit daunting if you're sending large amounts of Casper to different places, and you really just want to make sure it arrives. So I did that. I did my double check, triple check, when you look at the wallet address, we're sending it the right place, and hit send and switched to the other wallet, and it was like it was instant, like it was right there. And so I actually, I suppose this was kind of a pretty strong memory for me, because I was like, wow, like this is running on proof of work. Like I just sent, I could have sent the money around the world, right? It could have gone to anyone. It could have gone to someone in Africa. It doesn't really matter the fact that I sent it to myself. The fact that it was instantly available on the network, powered by, at the time it was GPUs, but ultimately proof of work. It just was like, wow. And so I suppose that was the point in which I got hooked, right? I started digging into it. I started researching who these guys are. And, the crazy thing was the industry was full of many different projects, but a lot of them had people that were just completely anonymous. And so, like, I respect that decision if you want to stay anonymous, but it is hard for me to get behind something if I don't know who these people are. Like, that's just my personal opinion. I suppose I do feel conflicted because I don't know who Satoshi is, but that's the edge case there, right? But when I'm looking for a new project that I really want to get involved with, the fact that when I can go onto their page, read who they are, what they're about, what they're researching, I was hooked, right? And so I suppose the rest is history, really. It's like I always laugh, like there's that meme about, it's like, I went to the community for the laughs or something, and now I am the community or something. Like, like it's like the clown meme or something. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I just laugh because I feel like I kind of just went there for some overclocks, and now I am, last year was a huge year for me, traveling the world, meeting a lot of different people who I'm quite, I look up to in the developer space, the researchers, and it kind of just feels surreal. So I suppose that's kind of the gist of it. That's my little bit of a long-winded answer to your question. There's many different bits and pieces that fall into that, but that's kind of the gist of it.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. And I just like the fact that, like, you kind of went into, there was a time when you realized that you need to, like, really analyze what you're doing in this space. And I really feel that, like, every single person in crypto gets to that point. My first cycle was like just kind of just doing my own thing, a normie, just kind of trying to make money fast because that's what you originally got in. Really, it's like, oh, you can make money, so let me get into space. But then, like, just because of my own strategies, investing strategies, and how, like, I want to actually protect my capital, I don't want to just kind of throw it around. I eventually was like, I need to really figure out, like, what's going on here, and that's what Captain made kind of got me interested in Bitcoin, because I was like, well, why does this keep staying number one? That's kind of like, what in the world? Like, and I feel like everyone needs to consider that, like, why is Bitcoin staying number one? And that can kind of get you down the rabbit hole that you need to go. And then I like to say now that, like, while I was on that rabbit hole to Bitcoin, at the bottom, I found a door that led to Kaspa, which is kind of, maxis will hate that, but if you know,
Yeah.
you know. Like, it's just like when you do that deep dive, you spend the time researching, you really find something here that's just like one of a kind. And it seems very similar to Bitcoin, and that's why the conversation's always there, Kaspa and Bitcoin together, and there's always some kind of contention between the two of whether or not, are they going to coexist? Is one going to replace the other? And I think that conversation is good to entertain.
Mm.
But at the same time, like, I'd rather not even really think about it right now, but just focus on like getting done what Casper wants to get done right now, which is just become the best layer one in the world, pretty
Yeah.
much for proof of work, and kind of just make proof of work great again. Just make that, bring that innovation in. But
I love it.
yeah, I was actually wondering your thoughts on that comparison with Bitcoin and Casper. Where do you fall in that?
Look, I mean, I find that the people that get Casper the most are the ones that are probably very strongly in the Bitcoin camp, right? Because we want the same things. The fundamentals are strong, decentralized, proof of work, layer one. You start talking about those type of things like fair launched as well. You put those through those into a group and tell me how many projects still exist today that have those qualities, that are right now in the top 100. I would say probably what, four or five. And so, when you talk to, I don't like the word maxi, but the people that maybe subscribe to that, the ones that do just have at least one ear open to what's going on out in the world, they eat it up. We all want the same thing here, right? And so, yeah, it resonates with me what you said about the Bitcoin side of things, because I think just embrace it, embrace them, embrace whoever wants to come into the community. I try to avoid, throwing stones at other communities as much as I can. And I think that the Bitcoin guys, once they realize what we're doing over here, they'll come over in droves. But whether I care about there's only going to be one, I mean, let's be realistic. Like, is there only one currency in the world right now? Like, is there just it gets into a bit of a philosophical discussion, one that which I personally probably haven't arrived at a decision yet, but I don't think it's valuable for us to spend our time talking about how there's only going to be one and one will rule them all. Like, this is not Lord of the Rings, right? This is crypto, and I'm sure there'll be many other projects, and I respect many other projects as well, right? They're not ones that I'm personally into. And I also mentioned, like, I mine Casper, but I do mine Bitcoin. I have Bitcoin miners as well, right? Like, because from the last cycle, I bought ASICs. I bought a few S19s that are still kicking around, and what I do with that, whatever. But I'm still a big believer in having multiple different sort of projects, but focused on one that I'm passionate about.
Yeah. I see that point of view, and like I said, I think the conversation is okay to entertain, but then I'm just
Yeah,
like, but let's just focus on what Caspa's doing here, and hey, I'll explain that to you what it's doing, and I'm just telling you, I'm just planning accordingly based on what I'm researching here. And to me,
yeah.
I'm like, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but I don't really. It's undeniable. I can't ignore it. I recently
I
had someone asking me to help them with moving money around, and they were asking me to use Bitcoin to help them move money around quicker. And I was like just knowing that, like, I could spend my time teaching him, but just knowing that Casper exists, it just seems
100%.
silly to me.
Yeah,
I mean, and especially with the fact that, yes, we want these to be digital currencies. Digital currencies are built with technology, and technology is always improving, and
yeah,
naturally man will flock to the most superior technology that makes things easier and more convenient. So it's, yeah, it's a really, really long you can kind of go back and forth forever, and it's always
I
interesting.
just yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
it just feels like a very wasted discussion, right? I think that it's not beneficial. It feels like a schoolyard debate about this is the best. No, this is the best. I mean, like yeah, I personally believe that Casper is the ultimate layer one sequencer, but it doesn't mean that other projects can't exist. And you know, particularly having other proof of work projects exist, I feel like it really just it does help the proof of work ecosystem. Am I going to be behind them? No, but you know, I see that they're doing amazing things and good on them. So I don't really care. Like once you get in that mindset, just yeah, it's not beneficial to your mental health to be thinking like, oh, there's only going to be one. Like yeah, let's just focus on building something amazing, and the rest will come.
yeah. It's a free market. You can always get both. I mean, if you're really
That's
undecided,
it, man.
for people,
You
it's
can do
like,
whatever you want.
and I know a lot of
Yeah.
Bitcoiners that follow me, and I asked them like, "Hey, you're following me, and you're like a Bitcoiner kind of guy on Twitter. You have Caspa?" And they're like, "Yeah, I have like 2% allocated, but I'm mainly just Bitcoin and MicroStrategy." Like always, they
Yeah.
always say that kind of thing. I'm like, okay, okay, so it's happening. You know, the people who that do their research, spend their time, you know, they kind of
Yeah.
start allocating accordingly based on how much they spent their time on researching Kaspa, which is
We,
like the same with Bitcoin. Same with any
yeah.
investment. The more you spend your time on it, understanding it, you know, you can build your conviction. So, yeah, that's always an interesting conversation. I also wanted to ask you, you did mention about Satoshi being anonymous and how with Kaspa everyone's doxxed. Do you feel that the fact that Kaspa does have doxed developers and mainly being the founder, because Bitcoin today has doxed developers. There's really no one anonymous on Bitcoin who's developing it, and a lot of people seem to
Yeah.
miss that. I try to always
Yeah.
teach that like guys like Kaspa and Bitcoin are literally being created in the same way with doxed people behind the code. One is just simply barely doing any changes, and we are just doing lots of changes. So, but yeah, what do you think about that? Do you think it really matters today for the founder to be anonymous? Like a lot of these Bitcoiners will kind of throw that out there, like it's a problem for Casper because Jonathan isn't anonymous.
I feel that the way that Jonathan approaches Casper makes it not an issue. You know, I think it's a non-issue because, you know, even just meeting Jonathan, seeing his mentality, his personality, what he stands for, what his interests are, and it makes me confident in knowing his intention is that, you know, he wants to be a part of the community, not in charge of it. You know, he wants to be a member that obviously has a very strong opinion and about things that relate to Casper, but he's not kind of guarding and saying this can or cannot. Like that's the beauty of a decentralized open source you know project. Anyone can get involved and anyone can kind of do whatever they want. So when it comes to Casper, I think it's a non-issue, honestly. You know, I don't see the way that he has put himself there as being any problem whatsoever. And you know, I think a lot of people just get stuck in that mindset, right? They take comfort in knowing that Satoshi's not going to dump his bags on us or something. Like they're like, oh, he's got all like whatever,
I
like
rather not
whatever
know
makes
what
yeah, like
Satoshi owns. Unfortunately, I do know, but like I don't know how much Jonathan owns. So if he's selling, I don't know, and I really don't
it,
care. I mean,
look,
he got it fairly, like
it's
everyone else.
100%. There's that whole conversation, right? And like everyone had the same sort of opportunity at the same time to do what they did, but you know, seeing personally, and this was not an issue for me before meeting Jonathan, but it really just reinforced my feeling that seeing the way that he really obviously cared about the community, but wants it to kind of flourish on its own and not be pulling the strings behind the scenes. You know, he doesn't want to be seen as some top dog saying this is what can and cannot exist. He can put forward his opinion of what he sees as Casper, but it's up to whether or not the community takes it on. So I think it's a non-issue in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, I would agree. I did stumbled upon that when I first found Caspa, kind of just like thinking about it, like, is this really a problem? But then at the end of the day, it's like the way he already conducts himself is he rarely speaks. I mean, when he does, it's like, oh, guys, look, he's speaking. And it's always very technical. Most people won't even really know what he's saying
Yeah,
for the most part.
Jonathan's yearly post.
Yeah, like he's just like he's a really really cool humble guy, and in my opinion I think it's just cool to actually like see his thoughts from the very beginning. You know, if you're reading like the articles that he wrote about Caspa before Caspa was even created, really, his thoughts of how this project was going to be, and how originally he thought like there was going to be a whole company behind it, and there was going to be this company that was going to gatekeep the ASICs and kind of just like distribute them out how they wanted it to be, and how it was going to be like an Ethereum contract. He had this whole plan, and it fell through, and it led him to realize that, hey, this won't work unless it's fair launch, unless we keep those ethos that made Bitcoin amazing, which is being fair launch. So in my opinion, you know, some people say like Bitcoin has like an immaculate conception, very hard to replicate. But I think with Caspa, it's the same thing. Like, how many founders would pull the plug on like literally having basically all the VCs in the world be interested and willing to drop any money to help, but instead just say, you know what, I'm just going to give it up for the community, and let's see what happens, pretty much. And that's how it was. And look where we are today. So I wouldn't even be here today if it wasn't fair launched. And I think a lot of people would say that. I put a post like a week ago or a few weeks ago where I asked that, and the poll was like, everyone was saying that, yeah, they would not be in Caspa if it wasn't fair launch. So I think that's one of the most biggest fundamentals for Caspa, because a lot of us wouldn't even be here without that. So yeah, I think Caspa just has its uniqueness to having a founder, and it's just not a non-issue.
Yeah, it is interesting to look and read some of the Medium posts that he did, and the frame of mind at the time. And yeah, I mean the release of the Casper code was in a fair launch capacity, was a real make it or break it type of situation. You know, if you have like a business, you know, that would be probably considered too much of a risk. You're not going to just put yourself out there with a 50% chance of failing or a 50% chance of some sort of success, I suppose. So, you know, I probably most likely would not be involved with the project if it was not in that capacity, fair launch, community launch, whatever you want to call it, you know, because obviously the semantics of that word can be kind of different opinions about it. But yeah, if it wasn't made available to everyone at the same time to get involved, then yeah, in my opinion, it would be a crypto company. And like, I think that was what the post that you made just the other day, right?
Word, you know, kind of get it going.
Yeah.
That people are calling everything a crypto company.
There is projects that I really respect. Other ones that are essentially, there's a company behind it, right? And that's brilliant. They have amazing engineers, developers, researchers, etc. But you know, I see the future of the ultimate layer one sequencer as being definitely not a company, but being not homed anywhere in the world. It is a decentralized network maintained by the people, not by, you know, a CEO, a CFO, and a bunch of hired engineers in a company that could get enforced to do a specific thing because they're in a certain country. Right? Like, I just think logically, right? If you want to think about the future of crypto, what is it going to run on top of? Is it going to run like, because every country has different opinions, right? About companies, about, you know, if you're in China, for example, you might have a feeling about Western companies. If you're in the States, for example, you might have a feeling about Chinese companies, right? But, you know, if you have a network that is not homed in any of them and it exists, you know, across borders, then that is where I see the true level of network being, you know, utilized. People, I feel like they will always hit a point where, yes, you might get some adoption for some pretty large entities in one country, but what that will mean is some large entities in another country will not touch you with a 10-foot pole, because you are from there and not from here. But if you're from nowhere and you're from everywhere, then I just see that's it just logically makes sense, you know, in
Right.
my small pea brain.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Um, another question regarding with Kaspa and the way it's developed is that the rapid emission schedule. You're a miner, so like you're. I really do appreciate the people who are like involved in all aspects of Kaspa, because it's like if you really want to be a Kaspa ambassador and a person that wants to advocate for Kaspa, I highly suggest you get involved in like all aspects just so you can know how it works. But what do you think about the emission schedule and how it was very rapid? And now, there's a lot of talks. I've been seeing it in the development room of concerns regarding the security funding, whether or not it's gonna be there. How concerning do you think this is? And if it is concerning, how long do you think we have to kind of like prove that it's going to be okay, or we're going to have to think of something else?
I mean, firstly, I definitely, um, when I found out about the emission schedule, was had questions originally, but once I started diving into it and kind of understanding some of the thought, the train of thought behind it, you know, speaking to Shy about some of the intricacies of it. The intention was to get the coin out into the hands of people prior to Enterprise arriving, right? And so, in my opinion, I think it was roughly 85% of the coin mined before Marathon Digital arrived on the network. And so, if we were to go by what their intention was, then it's a great success, right? Because you had a lot of home miners who just bought, for example, like an Ice River KS0 and just mined it, or home miners that had a GPU and mined it, or CPU, and so that meant that a lot of the coin, 85% or roughly thereabout, got out into the hands of real people, not enterprises with a budget of ensuring they do X, Y, Z at a specific time. So, yeah, I originally had questions. I had all of them answered. I did also have another philosophical moment of like looking at this, like, well, I look at Bitcoin and I mean, they still have the same issue, right? What's the security budget? What's going to happen at the end, right? But for Bitcoin, they made it our great, great, great grandchildren's problem. It's 2150, like some far off date, almost kind of like just pushing it so far out of the picture that it's not even something that is on any of their minds, right? Although it's probably in the back of their minds. Whereas Casper is like, well, and the researchers, the developers, the people involved are going, look, we really believe in this, and it kind of aligns with the ethos of launching it, make or break it, right? We believe in what we're launching. We really want it to take off. We want to get it out there. We want to do the things that are hard. Like doing things easy is not always the best route, right? Doing the hard way is not the conventional route. And so making it kind of harder, but meaning that more coin gets out into circulation of the average person's hands, I think it's a benefit, right? But I also do think that it doesn't escape the minds of those involved of, what will happen once the coins are mined. And so it does excite me to see initiatives that really do give back to miners, like, for example, whether you like it or not as a miner, like there's this certain positives to KRC20 that definitely kind of gives back. And it's an interesting concept because a lot of other networks don't directly give those rewards to miners. I mean, biased as I may be, I mean, the miners are the lifeblood of a proof of work network. And so a lot of people, it does trouble me when they see, comments about, the miners and in a negative light. But I mean, you can't have your cake and eat it, right? We're out here, we're running equipment, we're spending electricity, and we're doing what is involved to secure the network. And seeing that type of attitude, it does kind of trouble me a bit. But at the end of the day, my opinion is that I think the discussion of the security budget is something that is so on the forefront of the developers' minds because of the rapid emission schedule, that there's many different. I don't think there's a silver bullet, but there is many different solutions that will make sure that Kaspa can exist far into the future, much beyond when the emission schedule run out. So I suppose in a nutshell, I'm watching it with bated breath and seeing all of these different initiatives that are going to be launched on top of Kaspa. And I feel like it's in a really rapid succession because it's going to really get heated where people are going, whoa, wow, there's only like 15, 14, 13% left. Like let's do something. So I almost feel more excited because rather than us having to wait 100 years for many different solutions to come out, we're going to see something so rapid in the next, even just in the next year, that it's hard for me to talk to people and they say, oh, what's coming with Casper? And I'm like, there's so many things coming, right? Like the timeline is so compressed that it's hard not to think that things are going to be coming. So long-winded answer. As a miner, I love it to see these types of conversations take place in rapid succession. Do I have the answer? No, I don't even think the Casper core developers have, as I said, a silver bullet. They just have a number of different things that they feel strongly will be the solution here. So it's it's hard. Nobody knows the future, right?
Yeah.
So let's just do everything we can to make sure that future is as bright as possible for Kaspa.
Yeah, and that's why I never understood the people who want to just like simply complain about it and not really like do anything else. Because it's like Kaspa is all about the community, so it really is in our hands to make sure that it does get adopted. So this is like just that learning about the mining emissions kind of incentivizes people to become content creators, to do these initiatives with Casplex. And I think today we just got an announcement of that layer 2 company that wants to build something on Kaspa. So, and I think, yeah, like you said, things are gonna be moving really fast. Like we're gonna just start, I feel like, seeing things left and right happening where random third parties are just like, yeah, we've been testing this, and like I was surprised that they said testnet was gonna start end of the month. I was like, whoa,
yeah,
like, things are gonna
crazy.
start moving, and a lot of people need to remember that Kaspa is not dependent on just the core devs. Kaspa is decentralized. Anyone can come in and work on it, and so like some people are always just like, core devs don't care about the timing of the bull run or all this kind of, and it's like the core devs are doing their job, which is what they know what to do, which is make Kaspa faster. And then there's other devs who want to work on smart contracts, and then there's other devs who are doing apps, and it all comes together. They're all trying to achieve the same goal, which is mass adoption for Kaspa. And so yeah,
I like to use the analogy that I think that Kaspa has up until this point been building a really solid foundation for the house that's going to be built on top of it. Ensuring that with initiatives like the Rust rewrite, now with the moving to 10 blocks per second, the range of different KIPs that are being introduced, like the KIP 9 for UTXO state bloat, which is still something that every UTXO based project faces, but like building these types of things into the foundation that is in Kaspa, it's just now is when everything is all the builders are going to start looking at it. Because for example, for the last year that I've been attending these big events, there's always the question from really amazing developers from other communities, like, how can I get involved? And so unfortunately, it's not as for lack of a better word, but it's not as sexy to say, hey, go work on core Kaspa Rust development to a lot of developers. They want to just get in there, build some cool little decentralized app and call it a day, right? But now we're getting to that tipping point where the foundation is set, the concrete is hardening, and now it's time to really start building the walls and the many floors of the Kaspa skyscraper that's gonna have room for everyone, right? And that's the important thing, having the capacity to take in everyone from different areas, whether it's like you said, with that company that just announced today with EVM compatibility using L2, right? Whether it's embracing that for the people from the Ethereum compute community that are familiar with programming in that language and saying, come across, right? Like, and maybe enticing them to investigate other things, on Casper, right? Or it's potentially in the future using zero knowledge proofs, maybe Solana people, right? People that are used to the SPM, right? Like, I just see that we're building this foundation where we've got it rock steady, and this year and the next and many more is going to be years when the developers start going, okay, I can start building on top of this. It's just going to be immense, the amount of people that flock. So yeah.
Yeah, I am really looking forward to the future, and we are seeing signs of that adoption coming in, and it kind of just takes some patience. I wanted to ask you, in regards to using Caspa, do you actively use Caspa for payments, like as intended? Caspa means silver in Aramaic, and so are you actually using it as a money?
Yeah, so I've used it to buy hotels and flights through Travala. This is not a sponsored spot or a plug for them at all. I don't do any of that, but I've used it to buy the flights to go overseas. I've bought hotels, like not bought, but paid for accommodation when Shai and I were traveling in Ireland. We booked our hotels. I booked them through using that, so it was great. It was really awesome to kind of do that. I've definitely sent Casper to friends to kind of pay for certain things. Unfortunately, I don't have that many vendors that I can directly buy it with in Australia, or utilize it with, but I've certainly used it, and I do like to laugh because I think I bought a flight with it quite a while ago, and I'm laughing if that's going to be like a Bitcoin pizza moment when I look back on it and say, like, how much did I spend on this flight? But yeah, I use it. Probably would love to be able to use it a lot more in my day to day, because a lot of it, whether you like it or not, you have to pay for groceries, and unfortunately that is in fiat. But with certain providers now that do gift cards, that you essentially buy in Casper and you can utilize fiat, ones that I haven't used as well. So I use it. I use it enough. I would love to be using it a lot more though. And see a lot more vendors accept it, but I do accept that there is an element of some vendors that might be a bit hesitant because of the fluctuation, right? So they might be holding out for maybe a stable coin on Casper. So maybe that might appeal to them, and maybe see some more activity on that. But yeah, do you use it in your daily?
I don't
What's
use it. I
your
wouldn't
sort of
say
use?
I use it daily, but I do try my best to find ways to use it in my life. So I do pay my barber in Caspa all the time. I
That's cool.
made sure I onboarded him on there, and then I do use a platform called Coinsbee. Not
That's the one I was talking about.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, not a sponsor at all. But they're really great for gift cards. So yeah, you can like I just recently, I think like this month, I ran out of like Xbox Live, and I was like, you know what? Like, I had purposely removed my bank information from my Microsoft account because I was like, I just don't want this on here. I want to increase my privacy. And then I remembered I took it off, and I was like, wait, I can buy this with Casper, and I don't even have to expose my bank information anymore. So I went on Coinsbee, got a Xbox Live gift card, and just purchased it with Caspa, and it's just awesome that like there are actual ways to buy things that you may generally need in your day to day life, especially with that gift card alternative. You could buy like Visa cards on there, and then you
yeah,
can even have a Visa card shipped to you with cash that you had purchased with Caspa first. So then
yeah,
essentially now you could buy anything, and originally it came from Caspa. So I think it's really neat, and I think just the most difficult part of trying to use it for payments is like the taxes involved with different countries and stuff like that.
yeah.
So personally,
It's
I always gotta swap. Right, I have to sell my fiat at the moment to buy what I want, so that I don't really have to worry about any kind of like profits. But hopefully one day we'll see a future where governments will become more friendlier to the fact that these are alternative currencies, and they shouldn't really be
yeah.
taxed as if they're investments.
The legislation definitely hasn't caught up. with countries. Mine is in Australia is terrible as well. So yeah, it definitely does put a negative feeling towards utilizing it as a sort of daily sort of thing. But yeah, hopefully we'll see more of it in future. Yeah.
Do you care about any privacy features for Kaspa? I always see people hop in and say like, "Hey, is Kaspa ever going to have privacy like that?" Because they just feel like
I
that's very important, and I believe it is important. I mean, especially the world we're heading in, it's just everything's online. Like your whole entire life is pretty much online and can be searched up. So it's like people are really valuing privacy, and I kind of do see where privacy coins kind of get a little bit more popular again. Do you think Caspa needs to implement something, or do you care if it does or doesn't? What's your thoughts on that?
I I think Casper is a base layer. At first, to answer your question, I do value privacy, although fully doxed and out in the open. And then that's a concept that some people don't quite understand. Privacy is not being anonymous. It is just trying to be intentional about where you put your data, right? Where is it? Who has it? And what are they doing with it, right? And being in control of that. And so when it comes to Casper, I definitely do not want to see privacy specific features on the layer one. But what I do get excited for is anything that gets built on top of Casper, using it as this, ultimate layer one sequencer that may provide those privacy functions, right? And so if someone could build something on top of it, definitely I would be all for hearing about it, using it. But I just think that building specific features like oh yeah, Casper does privacy. I don't think it is the goal. The goal here is to be the ultimate sequencer that is, amongst many things, it is the goal to allow anyone to build anything on top of it and utilize it for whatever they want. And so if they want to bring privacy features to it, then no doubt there'll be people, once zero knowledge proofs are available in the opcodes, there'll be people that will bring those functions, whether it's at like a layer 2 solution or something. And I would definitely be for it because as we all know, once your wallet is known, it's not like it's security through obscurity. Like hiding the door is not locking the door. It's just putting it somewhere else that people don't know about. So I think there's benefits definitely to being able to be intentional about where your data is, and I really do hope that we see solutions get built that will utilize Casper as the layer one that will provide privacy features. But whether I want it on the layer one, I just think that it definitely brings a lot more issues than it solves. And it really pigeonholes the project into one area, which I just think it doesn't need to go. So, I don't know if that answers your question or not, but
Yeah. I'm pretty much on the same side as you on the fact that it should be on the layer two. Putting it on the layer one, and I had a discussion with someone recently because it always comes up about like XMR and how it is privacy focused, and it's experienced a lot of delistings on exchanges and just kind of a lot of backlash.
100%.
And a lot of people who are privacy advocates are like, this is bullish, this is exactly what we want, we just want peer to peer. And it's like, yes, but at the same time, if you want mass adoption, I don't think it's smart to create something that will be automatically something the governments will be against. Because at the end of the day, like as much as we want these things to adopt, governments are still going to exist. It isn't just the people kind of thing where the governments can really allow mass adoption even further. It can't just only be the people. So definitely the layer one, I believe, does just need to be like a normal, just a
I think it
ledger
needs
where
to be
everyone
agnostic.
can kind of just
Yeah.
see see every single transaction, and then on the layer two, you could bring in those features, and those people who want those privacy features can opt in or opt out, and it's kind of not forced on every single user who gets into Caspa from the get go.
And I think you'll see a lot of people get really excited about that because there'll be projects that come about that will be providing all of the privacy features that people are looking for, but on a truly decentralized proof of work network that has the speed to do a lot more than what was capable previously, right? And I kind of, I always channel this kind of thought when I remember when I speaking to the guys from Kaspa Industrial Initiative, right? One of the things that they were interested about was that, well, we looked at a lot of different projects that were that had the capacity to do some of the things that we'd like to see done on a proof of work network, but they weren't proof of work, and so the decentralization nature just wasn't there. It doesn't align. So when you look at Casper and see that the level of the true decentralization, but utilizing proof of work, and then you implement these features on a layer two, which doesn't sacrifice any of that. It sort of shines those three features through. Like I'm channeling the post from Jonathan recently talking about bringing and focusing on those features from the layer one into the layer two. People are going to love it. I don't see it as a negative. I just see it as being much more flexible. Build a system that can be utilized for anything. It's like looking at it like networking, right? You've got TCP/IP, right? It's not a specific. It doesn't. It is a network that utilizes you to do many different things. It's not saying you're only allowed to do this and this is what we're going to do and that's one thing. It's the highway, and whatever you want to put on that highway, whether it's a horse and cart or a Bugatti, is up to you, right? So yeah, I see it as being a positive that they're not inventing in buzz phrases and bringing AI to the layer one and sentient beings that do like no. We're building something that you can build that if you want on top of it, but they're not focusing on one thing. They're focusing on a network that will contain the entire, crypto industry. So yeah, it's a non-issue, I think.
Yeah, and that's
But
that's what I try to tell people with Caspa. But at the same time, like when you're buying Caspa, you're involved with Caspa, investing in it, you're exposing yourself to every sector, and you're just super early kind of thing because that's the goal. I mean, when I recall Jonathan's post in the past where he talks about that he just wants Caspa to be a playground for proof of work fans, and
yeah,
kind of just be a place where like, hey, like let's try this and see if this works on proof of work and kind of just bring back the innovation to proof of work. I mean, it's kind of just been
yeah,
stagnant for so long.
it,
It's been the same, just trying to do minor changes to kind of like I don't know fix Bitcoin in a way, but Caspa's taking
yeah,
another approach. It's not really fixing Bitcoin. It's more just becoming its own thing, its own standard, and just setting the way forward for how things should be on proof of work from now on. I mean, I don't understand why anyone would want to use the old Nakamoto consensus when Caspa exists now. I mean, and we've been seeing all these hard forks of Caspa now existing, which is it's cool to see. I mean, it's just like
it's flattery,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like they're
like they're just
trying, they're feeling something, and yeah, I mean, good
I
on
mean,
them,
like they're
but
just
they won't
showing that, like,
succeed.
yeah, we're not going to use an old system. We want to use this new system to try to. I don't even know what they're trying to do because it's like hard forks for Caspa make no sense since Caspa is all about change and accepting change and upgrading itself. So it's like if you're going to do
Yeah,
a hard fork, in the past it's always been about hey, what are you improving? But now
yeah,
these hard forks are they're just very low effort, more like, hey, we're just trying to rush to get to what Caspa's going to get to, and hopefully you guys buy in. So to me, they seem
I,
as
I,
just solely cash grabs all the time.
yeah, I tend to agree with you, unfortunately, but I'm sure there's some amazing developers that exist in those community, but all the best to them. But one thing that kind of stood to me what you're just saying, I feel like we are seeing a little bit of a proof of work renaissance. There is an element of returning to understand why it exists and how it exists, because whether we like it or not, there was really in my opinion, sort of like a greenwashing experience that occurred towards the end of Ethereum going from proof of work to proof of stake, and it really stuck a lot in a lot of people's minds. And so a lot of people don't have a lot of depth to understanding what proof of work is. They just get this narrative fed to them about, large amounts of electricity, which, yes, it does have large amounts of electricity, but there is a lot more to it. There is a lot more complexity to understanding the dynamics of proof of work and the benefits that it can bring to to countries, to businesses, and the like, right? And that's what really just excites me the most about it, seeing that proof of work can be utilized like a sponge that can just utilize the energy, wasted energy, stranded energy in all different locations. Like, as someone myself, like, I'm really passionate about IT, right? But I'm passionate about like building computers and servers and mining. But the prospect of being able to take proof of work, put it at the energy source, whether it's in a country that has an abundance of energy or has an energy grid that it's not profitable enough for them to invest into, and when proof of work comes there, dropping a container of miners, it gives them that funding to be able to grow and bring benefit to communities. So it's like a lot of people. I feel like it's becoming a lot more. People are kind of opening their eyes a little bit. The last kind of 4 years or so have been a lot of, large energy usage. Oh, we need to use proof of stake. I mean, yeah, but proof of stake is still using energy usage. It's kind of like moving the goalpost, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now your goalpost is in an AWS data center or GCP, and it's servers that are so far removed from being able to be owned by the average person that it's just not. Yeah. Anyway, but fundamentally, as you can tell, I'm not the hugest supporter of proof of stake, although some cool tech over there. But yeah, once you start digging into what proof of work can bring and what it can do, and the fact that it is, in my opinion, the one true consensus, because it connects to an unavoidable real world asset, and that's energy, right? Like, I don't know, it just kind of opens your eyes. But anyway, I digress. But that's my little piece about it.
Yeah. I really like all those thoughts. Want to ask you if someone's completely like just new to crypto, how do you go about explaining Kaspa to them and trying to like kind of get them onboarded?
So I feel like that you always have to kind of start with the history of crypto, right? And the history of crypto is Bitcoin. So start at the beginning, explain why it was created, because that's a big thing. A lot of people they don't get that whole sort of cypherpunk movement. They don't really understand why. What was the purpose? What are we trying to achieve here? Really kind of take it back to the basics. Take it back to trying to really connect to real world examples. Like, so for example, for me, not too long ago, my bank account got frozen because I made a single transaction with an exchange. Right? They froze my bank account. They froze my business bank account, until I called them up and was treated like a criminal while I had to explain to them why I made one purchase of some crypto using an exchange, which I hardly ever do. Like, I always usually just mine and do whatever. But you use real world examples. Show them, all right, this is the flip side, right? That money in your account that you see, those little zeros and ones and whatever in your bank account there, it is your money technically, but it also isn't your money technically. And so the moment that the system wants to restrict you from what you do with it, they will turn on you, and it will be, the onus will be on you to prove whatever the banks want. And so when you look the flip side of that, you take control of your own money, like the funny sort of mantra of be your own bank. Once you start taking control of that, you start realizing. So I always like to bring it back to real world examples. That's one that kind of hit home to me recently, was that in Australia there's 4 big banks, and a lot of them, if not all of them, are now very, whether they like to admit it or not, quite, I feel like, anti-crypto. They say they're not. But yeah, I use that as an example. Start at the beginning. talk about Bitcoin. I like there's a couple of Bitcoin videos that I do share, just to give people a general understanding, and then flowing through to Casper. Actually, funnily enough, I do share your video that you made quite some time ago about Casper. And I've shared that with actually a few people, and I feel like that does encapsulate in a nutshell the flow on from Bitcoin. So I do like to give them the history, try and relate it back. Why are we doing this? Relate it back to real world examples, and then say, well, your phone that you're using right now, is it still a Nokia 3310? No, it's an iPhone 16 Pro Max, right, with the latest camera. You look at that like crypto, right? There is the foundation. There's the phones that sort of captured the generation, but new tech comes out all the time, and Casper is an example of new tech that has not stagnated because of concerns about security. It has embraced the security, clarified its security, and then also shown what the future of what it can do. And so that's where Casper is. So real world examples, I think, the winning secret sauce to kind of explaining it to people that don't get it, because um, without that, they just think that it's a bunch of nerds online sending WoW gold to each other or something.
Yeah. I get a lot of people that just like, hey, like I'm trying to get serious about this crypto, and I've always like just heard people talk about like NFTs and meme coins and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, oh well, this is the serious side of crypto. You're gonna learn the serious stuff, and I always love to see people who are like 18 years old and they're just getting into this stuff, because I remember when I was
Yeah.
18, and I say that like it was so long ago, but it was only like I can't even remember right now, but it was like four or 5 years ago, that I was 18 in this space and kind of just like discovering things for the first time, and then I had 18-year-olds who like find my channel and they're like, yeah, this is my first coin, and I'm like, oh my goodness, man. Like, you are beyond blessed. You just don't understand. You really don't understand how
Yeah,
blessed you are to literally come and find my channel and this be your first coin, because you're at least in something that is teaching you new things and has nothing to do with just trying to financially benefit yourself. It's bigger than that. And so, as much as, yes, we do care about profiting and making money off of this, there's just a whole world of knowledge that you get from taking this path. And I think will be important even if Kaspa didn't exist anymore. It would still be important that you still came to these understandings. So it's really neat to see that, and just kind of the ethos that Kaspa still held on to all these years later after Bitcoin and all that kind of stuff. So definitely, I really do feel we're just seeing the next step. I mean, of where this industry needs to go, and the next step is proof of work. It's going to be on proof of work. That's what I believe it's going to be. It's going to be the main consensus mechanism that's going to be used to do all sorts of things, and Caspa's at the forefront. So it's really cool to see what is gonna happen there. Lastly, just
yeah,
some last final thoughts or things to talk about is, what do you think about exchanges and like listings, and we can't answer when questions like everyone wants to know when, but what do you think is going on there? I mean, Caspa's fair launch, so we know that we don't got allocations for them, but it seems as if like we know they're coming, but then it feels like they're not coming because it's just like they're just waiting on the
yeah.
sidelines or something.
It is a it's like a dark art. There's no real hard and fast answer to exchanges, because at the end of the day, they are a private entity that operate however they so choose. And no matter what you do, they will move however they want. They want to list something in 2 hours of announcement, then so be it. And that's what they need to report to. Maybe if they're a public company, I'd report to their shareholders or report to management on why they did that. So exchanges are, they're a really tricky one, because there is many out there that I don't think have caught up to or are able to cater for projects like Kaspa that don't have a CEO. They don't have an incorporation address. Whether fortunately or not, like there's a little post I made about Coinbase, right? And you can go on their website. It's not private knowledge, but you want to list a coin, they've got a 5-page questionnaire, and a majority of the questions are listing the address and title of management of the project. And it's like, well, okay, this is great for crypto companies, but what about crypto projects that don't have anything? So, my opinion, I think that the exchanges do need a bit of a shake up. I think there needs a little bit of a. They need to take a more um, a different approach to looking how they list these. And I have heard from sources inside and outside that some of them are really doing and trying to put their foot forward to sort of do the right thing. But I just don't think it's coming quick enough. And I think that the big ones unfortunately have a lot of bureaucracy. They have a lot of red tape. Coming from enterprise world, like I'm familiar with it, so it doesn't really surprise me. But unfortunately, I don't know if they're moving as quick as crypto can handle. There's a lot more that can be said and done by those entities, and yeah, and the big question is like the when questions, right? It's funny, right? Everyone like I literally have messages on Telegram on a daily basis of people messaging me like, when is Casper going to get listed on Binance? And it's like, well, first of all, I don't work for Binance. And second of all, whenever they want, like they go, oh well, maybe we should send them $1 million. And I go, well, I mean, I'm sure that might incentivize them, but at the end of the day, even if you send them $1 million, the ultimate decision is theirs. And so when they want to list is when they can list that can make them the most amount of profit. And obviously, if they look at it, they don't look at it in a time frame of 5 minutes. They're not going, all right, well, what can I do right this second? They're probably looking long term and short term and saying what is the best way that we can maximize our return, because at the end of the day, they're a business. They're not a DEX. They're not doing it with altruistic intentions. They're trying to make the best profit for their business. And so if listing a project means that, they need to market buy coins over a specific amount of time so they can have enough liquidity, then that means they need longer to do it. Or whether or not they're waiting for a particular landmark moment that they feel is going to achieve fever pitch activity on their network, then so be it. But once you get to the big leagues and you're dealing with tier one exchanges, they move whenever they want. It's not a. It's like dealing with exchanges on the lower level. There's probably more communication because they're all very excited and they do what they want. And you kind of, Casper is famously not paid for any exchange listings since I can't remember the one, but it was quite some time ago. We're talking the real early days. So majority of it is just real excitement from their end, from the developers going, we want to integrate this. But once you get to the big leagues, it's they move in different ways and they don't respond to you and they just do whatever they want. So the question that I get, and I've channeled this because this is something that Shai told me. He's like, I don't answer when questions. When this, when that, when this integration, when this exchange listing, it's just futile, right? Because I'm not in there, and they do whatever they want. They press the go button whenever. So anyway, I've gone around in circles. It's just, yeah, it's one of those questions that I just, who knows? Let me get out my crystal ball and I'll give you the answer. But what I do feel is that it is inevitable. Like, it's inevitable that they will come to the party. When that's going to be, who knows? But the party's happening with them, whether they like it or not.
Yeah, and that's what I like to tell people. I'm like, well, at the same time, like, we've already witnessed what Casper can do without them, and who's to say that it won't continue? People will find ways when they see when some people experience FOMO, or when they really experience that they just they got to get some Caspa. They'll find ways to find Caspa, and I think there's a lot of ways that we do have be able to get Kaspa now, but for sure the major exchanges would be best. To me, it's mainly in regards to the U.S., The US is still like
Yeah.
pretty difficult for us. I'm just using swaps now. Like I don't even use an exchange. I just use a swap, which in my opinion, hey, I'm like increasing my privacy. So that's neat about it. But the fees and kind of, you kind of got to pay for the convenience of it going straight to your wallet, and really quickly. So, but I like you were saying, I think they are gonna eventually. It's inevitable that they can't just ignore Kaspa forever. And I don't think Kaspa is one of those coins where if an exchange ends up ignoring it in this, like, kind of like we go into like a bear market, and if an exchange decides to ignore a coin, that coin just dies. I really think Kaspa is not built like that. I mean, there's so many supporters that are sticking around, whether or not they're here right now. So it's like I just hope that exchanges do change how the framework is to listing. Because yeah, I remember I went on Coinbase to try to list Kaspa because it's like, anyone can go and try to list. I mean, Kaspa decentralized, but it's like, who's the CEO, and can you name me five other executives of the project? And I'm like,
it's a joke.
It's like they have completely left what the whole intention of cryptocurrency and what crypto was supposed to be. It's now it's just expecting that every new listing is gonna just have this very organized company behind it. And it's sad to see, because it's like the real adoption can come with the projects that are trying to remain how they are, like Kaspa, where it kind of just motivates people to use crypto way more, instead of just simply trying to just hold it and then hop out of it because you're just trying to get rich quick.
I like to look at it, and I think that it is a product of the environment of crypto. And when I do try and take my biased Casper hat off for a minute, and I just look at the state of the industry over the last couple of years, there really hasn't been maybe a lot of proof of work based projects that have gotten. There's a couple, but obviously Bitcoin is not what I'm talking about. But other projects that have gotten to that level where maybe they are being actively listed on tier 1 exchanges. So if I play devil's advocate for a minute, it is probably a product of the crypto environment, but I think that they have rested on that for a little bit too long, and I think that it's time that these exchanges and these organizations get a little bit more education about what is a truly decentralized project, and how are we going to find a framework that will enable us to list them, because they can't ignore the knocking at the door for too long, because it's something that people want, and whether they provide it or not, people might go elsewhere to get it. And I just see it as, if they see an opportunity to make money, then they'll do it. But let's just hope that 2025 is the year that proof of work makes such a crash onto the scene that it really motivates these huge players to rethink their strategies. So I can only hope for the best.
Yeah. Hopefully we do see a lot more listings so that we can get more adoption going and more on ramps.
I mean, I don't focus on it. Like, I don't say like, oh my god, we need them or we need that. I mean, like, it's fun. There's a little bit of play on words. I'll comment on a post and do that sort of stuff just for the laugh. Like, but it's not really keeping me up at night that Binance hasn't listed Kaspa right now, because whether they list it or not, or other exchanges, Coinbase, whatever, the devs still keep deving, and they keep building, and things keep moving, and blocks keep creating. Like, it's just
Kaspa's gonna do its thing. I mean, it shows up every day and works, and it's like, it doesn't matter what anyone thinks about it, what anyone's opinions about it online. It's like, it's just gonna show up every single day and process 86,000 plus blocks, and it's gonna do it again the next day, and that's what we want. That's what we need. Is just something that's gonna work as intended and is decentralized fully. Really, I really looking forward to making a video about the hardware requirements and just kind of like comparing the hardware requirements to like everything else out there, and how Casper just really enables people to really be self-sovereign and do everything themselves. You know, you can run your own node, you can just be your own bank, pretty much. So
When you start looking into it and you recognize that to run a node on Kaspa it could be run on a single board computer like a Raspberry Pi, or even just some old refurbished $100 machine off eBay that nobody wants, and that is kind of the backbone of the network. Obviously, in addition to miners, it starts kind of turning the wheels, right? And so I do really like to lean on some of the amazing work that people in the Bitcoin community have done about nodes and encouragement and education on this matter, because obviously they've been doing it for a lot more years than us. But I see that the Casper community can now really start giving some attention to that and educating, because I think one of the coolest things is, since learning about Casper personally, I've learned a lot of different things that I probably never would have done. And I feel like that can be seen as the same positive for others who aren't that technical and maybe want to kind of dip their toe in the water and run a little node or something. Maybe they've only got one computer, or maybe they've got 10 computers, but the prospect of doing it, I think, is quite with a lot of new things that are coming out. Hopefully we'll see sort of initiatives in the future, but simplifying that process and just making it as easy as possible to run your node on the network and be your own bank. Really, you're not relying on anyone else. So yeah.
yeah, really, really love just all the technical things you can get into with Caspa, and it really does. I mean, you get to learn skills. I mean, and learning about
Yeah.
Caspa teaches you skills that you can actually use in real life, in jobs, and even put on your resume. I mean, some of the things I've done, I put it on my resume, and kind of just say, hey, like I have a GitHub, and I created a little tutorial here for people,
Yeah.
and companies are going to like to see that kind of stuff. They want people who can be creative and think on their own, and do things on their own. So yeah, getting involved in the technical side of Caspa, I always encourage everyone to seriously look into that stuff. Running a node, everyone that has Caspa should be running a node. That should be like the standard. So really important. Hopefully we do get more resources out there. I'm looking forward to making more videos on how to even run testnet 11 so that more people can be involved. Like, that's the amazing thing too, is that you can even be involved with testing Caspa to ensure it works for the future for
Yeah.
yourself. So
Yeah.
so many ways that anyone can be involved with Caspa. You don't have to become a YouTuber. You don't have to be a dedicated dev. There's just so many different things that you can do in Caspa, which is just so unique and different. I believe when you are looking at something like Bitcoin and the community that exists there, it kind of just feels that everyone on Bitcoin is uh, kind of just holding and hoping that someone else is doing the needed stuff, and someone else is doing it. But with Caspa, it's like encouraging everyone to be involved and get involved with this, because this is our coin. This is our project, and we are the future of it, and every single person matters with Caspa. And I love that kind of like difference between the two projects when you're looking at Bitcoin and Caspa. It's just the communities are so different, and in a good way. And so, yeah, that's pretty much just, I can go on and on about that stuff with Caspa.
I love it. No, I think it's good. It's very different but the same. We're all humans at the end of the day. We all have passions, and if you can come into Casper, ask a question, and get a direct answer from someone who's literally working on the code base of Casper, it's kind of funny, like, that you can literally get direct line to whoever, right? Maybe Michael's in the research Discord channel, or whoever, right? And you're seeing it in front of your eyes, like, I
Yeah,
don't know.
that's super
It's a
unique.
cool
I mean,
thing.
I don't recall anyone really talking with like core Bitcoin core devs like that, or they even have a public Discord. But I mean, with Caspa, it's like, yeah, you just hop in the Discord and you might happen to just see Jonathan speaking to some random dude with some random
Yeah,
username that gave a
yeah, a
really good question. And
picture of a monkey or something,
yeah, some
and
random picture,
they
and
just
Jonathan's
whatever.
like
Yeah,
answering
yeah,
away, like, yeah, and
yeah.
so that's
I
what I
think it's
really
cool.
like. There's no form of like, there's like higher ups, and kind of thing. It's kind of just like, hey, we're all on the same level here, striving to do one thing here, and it's just see Caspa successful and make it grow. Just to end off, if anyone's interested in becoming an ambassador, can you kind of break that down and show that kind of side of what you're doing there? Because that's like your main thing for Caspa.
Yeah, no, that's great, man. Thanks. Look, anyone who wants to be an ambassador, jump onto the casper.org page. There's a section called ambassadors, and then there's an application form there. Now, being an ambassador is a title, but I mean it's more than that, because really we're looking for people who are already sort of channeling being an ambassador. It sounds funny, but I'm pretty much looking for people that are already acting as an ambassador, and I'm trying to connect them up with other people and kind of bring them into the fold so that they all kind of can learn and grow from each other. So, what's involved with being an ambassador, it's someone that really kind of understands the tech. We're not looking for someone who just found out about the project yesterday, and that's fine. You can do that, but we're looking for people that have kind of been involved in the community for an amount of time, and they're a part of the community. Right. There's a lot of other projects out there that have similar sort of programs whereby they're just looking for anyone to shill their project, and that's completely fine. They can do that, but this is not what the ambassador program is. And so, I welcome those people to go do that about Casper if they'd like, but not direct. They're not necessarily going to be in the program. Now, it does get a little bit tricky for me, because I see the program as being eventually a decentralized thing, but we do need to bootstrap it a bit at the moment. And I say that with my intention, as I see the future of the ambassador program as being regional groups all around the world that kind of run their own ambassador program. And they're looking for, passionate individuals who are familiar with the tech, they're familiar with the ethos, and they're out there finding region-specific initiatives that are important to them. Because a regional important initiative in Australia is not going to be the same as what's in Korea, right? So having those and building those kind of groups up is really what I'm focusing on now, right? Finding and connecting those groups of people all around the world, trying to nurture that by giving them any knowledge that I myself have tried to learn over the last couple of years with Casper, whether that's a lot or a little, doesn't really matter, and then trying to really encourage them to continue on in that way. So, long story short, we're looking for people that are already doing these amazing things. Apply on the website. We're not really we're looking for people that are definitely going to be able to show their face. So people, whether they really want to stay anonymous, that's totally fine, but we're looking for public people that can go out there, talk to businesses, talk to exchanges, talk to other individual users about their passion for it, and not have to hide behind a picture of an ape, which is, that's totally fine if you do that, and you can be your own ambassador. You can just go out there and do whatever you want to do. But yeah, that's the gist of the program. It is more of a grouping of passionate individuals in one location that all have a very strong and similar goal. And that goal is to educate people about this amazing technology and explain to them why it is that we are so passionate about it. So apply online. Don't apply and then immediately message me and say, hey, I want to do it tomorrow, because there's a lot of people that have applied, so we're still working through quite a bit of backlog, but we will get around to it, and we will if you're successful, we'll reach out to you. So if it's not something that's the right fit for you, then yeah, don't feel disheartened. We're still encouraging and supporting, and just like I do support every Casper community member out there, whether they want to be doxxed or not, that's completely up to them. But for the purpose of the ambassador program in its incarnation right now, that's what we're kind of looking for. We're looking for those passionate public individuals that can really just spread the word sort of evangelize Casper to a degree, get out there and really make it special. So that's my little shill. So thank you.
And it's not a paid position. You
No,
gotta
there
get
is
that out
no
there.
look.
It's not really a paid
We're not
position.
we're not employing anyone. We are finding people that want to volunteer their time, whether large or small. I'm not expecting you to be giving me, all these daily updates on what you're doing or whatever. As long as you're passionate about it and you're sharing it in your community, whether that's online or offline, I don't care. But it's definitely not a position to get paid for. There's no airdrops. There's no nothing. It's just there is some potential funding to kind of support initiatives, and that is on a case by case basis. There is a little bit of funding available in the community marketing fund with the intention of trying to help these kind of regional events, but it's not an extravagant. We're not like other projects where we have millions and millions of dollars in some treasury, because as we both know, there is no Caspa treasury. It's all community funded. So that's the ethos of it, really.
Yeah, that's awesome. And just you don't have to be a part of the program to even be an ambassador. I
No,
mean, like
no,
I'm not a
you
part of the
be whatever.
program. I probably should sign up, so I'm on there. But I'm already
Hey, maybe
an
apply, man. Yeah,
ambassador. Just
yeah.
doing my own thing over here
Look,
on YouTube. But yeah, it's
look,
just a great way to kind of like have an organized network with other people who are aligned in the same way and have that goal of
we
just
we
spreading
we had
gospel around the
we,
world.
we had to choose a word. An ambassador is the word, but you can be whatever you want. If you're a passionate Casper community member and you want to share it across any platform, you don't need me to tell you that you're an ambassador. And just like you do on a daily basis, you do it anyway. So I
Mm-hmm.
know I'm kind of contradicting my intention here, but that's crypto, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Luke, thank you so much for coming on the channel. Looking forward to having you again in the future when a lot of stuff come online for Caspa. I'm hoping we can maybe look back at this and just be like, man, like wow, like it's crazy what happened.
Yeah.
So yeah, hopefully we do get you
I,
back on here again in the future, and thank you for coming on. And you could say any final words.
I just really appreciate you having me on here. It's, as I said, I have enjoyed your content for quite a while. I have sent many people to watch your content, so it feels a little bit funny to now come full circle and be talking to you on video call about it. So I'm just thankful, right? Thank you for this discussion. It's always fun to speak to someone else that has a very similar passion for something that means so much to me. So thank you for that, and thank you to all the people that follow your channel for supporting you, and I hope they continue to do so. What's that YouTube thing? Like and subscribe, all that sort of fun stuff, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I love it, and thank you, appreciate it, man.
Thank you for all that, and thank you all for watching. And as always, don't be average, be different.